whereas DeAndre Swift has pre-established habits. And sometimes it's not easy to teach an old dog new tricks. Not to say that DeAndre Swift's old, but by running back standards, he's like middle-aged. So it's kind of hard to coach that out of him at this point in his career. Alrighty, welcome everybody back to another video here on the channel. If you don't know who I am by now, my name is David. I also go by Miller Football, and this is the final episode of my team preview series that I've been doing throughout the summer, where I am talking about all 32 teams in depth leading up to the 2023 NFL season. And if you've been following along with this series, you know there's only one team left, which would be the Philadelphia Eagles. And unfortunately, due to a myriad of scheduling conflicts, which has kind of been the theme for the last couple of these videos, which is totally understandable. I took way too long and everyone's dealing with college and jobs and real life and whatever. But I couldn't get an Eagles fan for today. So instead, I got a Vikings fan, which I know seems kind of odd, but I promise he makes up for it by being a massive Jalen Hurts fan. So if you don't know the guy to my right, that is Geek. He's my podcast co-host over on Run the North. He's been in like 5 of these because I've needed people to jump on, and he has been free. So before we jump into this, Geek, how are you doing today?
Doing great. I got like a lot of sleep last night, so that was great.
Like a lot by normal human standards, or a lot by your standards over the past week because you were doing your subathon?
A lot by just my standards, because insomnia, so my standards aren't great.
Right.
But it was nice. I'm well rested, ready to
That's
scream about the Eagles.
Okay, fair enough. So kind of where I want to start here is, this is a team that this offseason lost both of its coordinators, right? You saw Shane Steichen go to become the head coach of the Indianapolis Colts. Jonathan Gannon's now the head coach of the Arizona Cardinals. And when you lose important pieces of your coaching staff, usually it's going to leave some sort of impact, whether it's good or bad. So just kind of to start us off here, leading into talking about last season, how do you think the Eagles are going to fare without these two coaches this year?
So I was not the biggest Gannon fan.
Understandably so.
Especially when you have to have Vic Fangio come show him what he's doing. I don't know how much you lost at defensive coordinator. I guess I don't know who the Eagles' new DC
Sean
is.
Desai.
Okay, Sean Desai should probably be fine.
Yeah, he's another Fangio guy, so it's just plug and play.
Yeah, pretty much.
Plug and coach, rather.
Steichen, I don't know how much I care.
Interesting. Okay, why is that?
Because the Eagles have maybe the best offensive core in football.
Fair.
Like, you're going to have to be Urban Meyer levels of war criminal to fuck it up. Like, pretty sure I can draw that offense up to be a Super Bowl contender, and it wouldn't be that hard. Like, when you have Jalen Hurts, you have good running backs, or even guys who I think are just specialty players, like a DeAndre Swift, who is still going to make something happen every once in a while because he's just so explosive. You got A.J. Brown and Devonta Smith and Quez Watkins and Dallas Goedert and the best offensive line in football. I mean, you're going to have to be really bad at your job to like not have a great offense here.
Yeah.
So it's not so much that Steichen wasn't good. I think he was a really great offensive coordinator. And as much as I've hyped up Jalen Hurts forever, because, that was the thing, right? Jalen Hurts always gets better. Some of that has to be Steichen. As much as I think it was just, Jalen Hurts is most of it because he did it before Steichen. But, he also did that going from Saban to Lincoln Riley. And we know what Lincoln Riley does with quarterbacks. I mean, he has 3 of them starting in the NFL right now, a 4th one on the way, maybe a 5th one on the way if Spencer Rattler starts. So, like, we know what Lincoln Riley does with quarterbacks. But, Hurts just continues to get better, but Steichen needs some credit for that. That's why he got a head coaching job, was the leap Jalen Hurts took. So I think he's probably going to be missed more, but also you're going to notice him being gone less because that offense is still just so talented.
Yeah. And I think the key here is not so much the guys leaving, right? Like their scheme being gone, because it's still going to be the same scheme. Sean Desai is very much a Vic Fangio guy, and we'll talk more about the Eagles defense here in a little bit, but at its core, it had a lot of Fangio influences. As you mentioned, he was a consultant on the defense or whatever. And then the new offensive coordinator, Brian Johnson, was the QB's coach last year. So not only is he familiar with this offense, but he's worked intimately with Jalen Hurts. So, this offense too, specifically looking at the offense, it's not like it's crazy complex, like in terms of the adjustments that were made last year specifically to really help the Eagles. At a certain point, it did become fuck it, AJ's down there somewhere. And that works because Jalen Hurst is one of the best deep ball passers in football, and AJ Brown is the best 50-50 ball receiver in football. In fact, not joking, it's not 50-50 balls with AJ Brown. They're 80-20 balls. He caught 80% of his contested catch attempts last year, which is fucking mental. That should not be possible by a receiver that gets that many targets on contested catches. But I'm with you in saying that I don't think, at least schematically, them leaving is going to be a big deal. I think the question is whether or not these guys are going to know, when to hit the button at the right time, so to speak, right? Like, the play calling, the decision making, especially on the defensive side of the ball. Sean Desai has, I don't want to say he's been up and down, but hasn't really had a full chance to prove himself yet, because he was Vic Fangio's assistant in Chicago, and then he took over as Chicago's DC at one point and didn't have a lot to work with there. Goes to Seattle, also didn't have a ton to work with. So now this is going to be the most talented defense he's worked with. And, me and you were talking about it before we started recording. This defense, even though it has a bunch of Fangio influences, last year wasn't like your typical Fangio defense. There were a lot of differences in it, especially on the back end. So it'll be interesting to see what the side does there. But I do think as a whole, the talent will outweigh the loss of the coaches. I don't think this team's going to fall apart without these coaches. You might see some bumps and some interesting decisions and things like that along the way, especially considering you have a first-time offensive coordinator and a defensive coordinator that hasn't really had all the toys at his disposal that he has right now beforehand. But, looking at them as coaches, like Shane Steichen's awesome. He's, like you said, the reason he got hired is because of the work he did with Jalen Hurts, and now he gets to go do that work with Anthony Richardson, who is, very similar to Jalen Hurts in a lot of ways. And Jonathan Gannon, I mean, I like him a little bit more than you do just because of the things he was able to do with the Fangio defense that he was given, but he's still not like a superstar defensive coordinator. I mean, he said himself that he lost the Eagles the Super Bowl.
Right.
And I feel like a lot of people kind of went with that. A lot of people believe that coming out of it.
But
yeah.
I do get mad at the people saying, well, it's Jalen Hurts' fault for the one fumble. It's like they were still up by 2 scores at the time.
And Hurts played incredible,
right?
99% of the time otherwise. Like,
right. It's like the
Hurts
defense giving up 30 some points is the problem here.
Yeah, exactly. And that, that's another thing. As much as I love Fangio and I love Fangio defenses, those defenses against the right type of quarterback are hard to run because they're so coverage dependent. And when you have a guy like Mahomes, who's probably the best improviser in the league, you're trying to get him with 4 consistently. It gives him too much time, and it gives those guys on the back end a really hard, what's the word I'm looking for? A really hard task to kind of keep up and deal with all the receivers because of how good Mahomes' guys were at scramble drills, and they didn't have like a true elite tight end eraser to at least contest Kelsey. Like, obviously they had a pretty solid linebacker core, but as much as I love TJ Edwards or Kaiser White, both guys that I'm very high on, neither one of them are going to go toe to toe with Kelsey and do much,
Right.
So the Eagles were at a really big disadvantage against Mahomes inherently defensively, but Gannon certainly didn't do them any favors in terms of his play calling or, his adjustments made throughout the game.
So, and then speaking now of the offensive coordinator, Brian Johnson, their new OC, has been the quarterback's coach since January of 2021. He's also known Jalen Hurts since Jalen was in preschool. Johnson was coached in high school by Jalen's father.
Aw. Well, that's
So
sweet. I didn't know that. That's really
yeah,
cute. I love that.
yeah, that's kind of cool. Yeah, he had no connection with the Eagles when he got hired, other than he knew Jalen Hurts. So there you
That's pretty
go.
sweet.
Yeah.
I love that. Man,
So
that'll be crazy when they're hoisting the Lombardi at the
there's
end
going
of
to
the
be a lot
year.
of trust there for sure.
Yeah.
So that's good, probably.
Yeah. But the point here is like, yeah, Gannon and Steichen will be missed, but it's not the end of the world. And it's not a them thing. It's just the Eagles are that good thing. Right. But looking at this team last year, this is a team that went 14-3. They were first in the NFC East, 7-2 at home, 7-1 on the road, 3-2 in their last 5, but Jalen Hurts was banged up in those games. So it's not like they were playing at full strength. It's not like they had some weird late season skid. It was Jalen Hurts wasn't Jalen Hurts for a little bit there, and then he picked it up in the playoffs. And
Right.
then statistically, this is a team that was first in rushing EPA per play. No surprises there. 7th in passing EPA per play makes a lot of sense. 25th in run defense EPA per play, which caught me off guard a little bit. They were first in pass defense or coverage EPA per play. And then in terms of points scored, they were second in points scored with 477. They were 8th in points allowed with 344. And then third in point differential with 133. Now, all of those numbers are great. The Eagles were great. Run defense is interesting.
Yeah.
Because you look at the Eagles, and this is a team that, especially going into last year, you think Philly, you think deep defensive line.
Yeah.
And they just weren't there last year. I don't know if you have any thoughts on that
Well,
as to what you
so
think could have been the reason
I
for it.
remember them being really banged up early in the interior.
Yeah,
I
Jordan
remember,
Davis missed a ton of time, didn't he?
well, and so did Fletcher Cox early, and then Jordan Davis missed time. There was that whole thing that when Jordan Davis was on the field, they were like the best run defense in football. Then when he was gone, they
Right.
weren't as good. Because then later in the season, because of Cox and Jordan Davis being hurt, they brought in Linval Joseph, they brought in Ndamukong Suh just to really try to rebolster. And I mean, it worked.
Yeah.
But I think that number is just skewed by how rough it was early in the year.
Probably.
And then, I mean, a bit of it has to be that this was a team you really didn't want to throw against anyways. So fuck it. We're just going to run it as much as possible.
Yeah.
Plus, we don't want to give that offense much time with the ball. So, like, the strategy to beat them was just try to run the ball on them. And for some teams, it worked. And for some teams, it really didn't.
Yeah. And I mean, you literally took the words out of my mouth. I had that written down to talk about pretty much exactly that. Jordan Davis, his impact, and then, teams really not wanting to throw the ball against this team. And a big reason for that is just how dominant the corners were. Like, I mentioned Jonathan Gannon was a Fangio disciple. He worked hand in hand with Vic Fangio, but he's different than a lot of Fangio disciples. A lot of those guys, when they run their defense, they don't call it quarters for their defense. They call it quads.
Right.
So they run a good bit of what they call quads, but they run a lot of quarter, half, which if you don't know what that is, it's essentially quarters on one side, cover 2-man on the other. And the idea is, on one side, you have corner manned up on whatever receiver is set off by himself. Usually you use it against trips looks. That would be a normal team's usage of it. Fangio defense, they just use it a lot. So typically speaking, on the cover 2-man side, you want your best corner on, whoever's by himself, and then you'll have a safety over the top just in case, right? And then on the quarter side, you're just running quarters, like I said, usually against like a bunch or a trips look. And a lot of the Fangio teams run that a good bit. The Eagles were 17th in running quarter, half, with 7.4% of their defensive snaps, but they were third in quarters with 24.6% of their snaps. And the reason they did that is because they had this kick-ass corner duo and Darius Slay and James Bradbury. And they said, you know what? They don't need overtop assistance. They don't. And that's a really fucking ballsy thing to do. Like, a lot of people give Gannon a lot of shit. The cojones this man has to say, fuck it, you two our only line of defense on the outside on the perimeter. We're going to keep everybody else kind of inside to worry about the middle of the field and worry about the run. You guys do your thing on the outside. That is ballsy. That is risky. And it worked like a fucking charm.
Yeah.
Like I said, this was a team that was first in coverage EPA per play. That is hilarious. It's incredible. Like, that's one of my
There's
concerns.
only what, 2 corner rooms outside of Philly in the league that could do that, maybe.
I was gonna say if that, yeah.
Like Dallas can,
Mm-hmm.
and then maybe the Jets.
I would say the Jets could because I really like DJ Reed.
Right.
And
That's
in quarters.
and of course sauce is sauce.
Yeah, sauce is sauce. But DJ Reed, I really like in quarters, specifically because he gets to play off coverage and he's a smaller dude. So yeah, there's like 3 teams in the league that can do this, but the Eagles did it more and just said, fuck you, we don't care, which is awesome. Like when I saw that, when that kind of clicked with me, because watching the Eagles most of the season last year in my head, they were just like, oh, okay, Fangio defense, yada yada. I saw those numbers and I was like, okay, hold on, I gotta go back and look. You watch the all 22. I gained so much respect for Jonathan Gannon as a play caller just for the fucking balls he had to pull that off. And the fact that it worked is even better.
Right.
And then another thing to kind of go with their run defense not being as great. I've talked about it a ton on this show. A lot of teams nowadays run cover 3 as like a base formation to, fit the run better because you get more guys inside and you have essentially a guy for every gap. You have 8 men in that kind of intermediate area.
Mm-hmm.
And, that's what a lot of teams run to fit the run on early downs. The Eagles were 19th in cover 3 with 32.6% of snaps. They just didn't bother with cover 3 a lot. Additionally, they were 17th in cover 0 with 1.5% of their snaps. Again, kind of a testament to how much they trust their corners because they just said, fuck it, go man up on somebody. You can run that a little bit. 19th in cover 1 with 19.2% of their snaps. Again, kind of a testament to them not loving their safeties. You can kind of put CJ back there and he can bite down on a route or something, but otherwise there wasn't a lot going on with the corners there. They were 28th in cover 2 with 5.4% of their snaps, and they were 19th in cover 5, cover 2 man, whatever you want to call it, with 0.7% of their snaps. So coverage-wise, it was a Fangio-style defense, but it was a new twist on an old classic. And I thought that was really cool. Like, this was essentially the Fangio equivalent of, like, a heavy metal band covering Frank Sinatra. Yeah. And I think that's really fucking cool. I love it.
That's valid.
Yeah, it's like Screamo Fly Me to the Moon over here. And I love it.
Now I kind of want to listen to that.
And then in terms of blitzing, again, this was straight Fangio. They were 15th and 3rd and short with 33.3% of their snaps, 23rd and 3rd and medium with 25.4% of their snaps, 31st and 3rd and long with 19.7% of their snaps. And then they were 32nd in overall 3rd down stunt percentage with 25.8% of their snaps. If you know Fangio, you know it's a conservative defense. You're trying to win with 4 as much as possible. And you don't do a lot of stunning. It's just straight up sending 4 guys at you, and they're going to beat you, with whatever they got to beat you with. And that's what Philly was last year. And you can do that when you have Hassan Reddick, who is one of the 5 best edge rushers in football. And you have Josh Sweat, who is the best, number 2 pass rusher in football. And you have, Brandon Graham, who's still kicking. You had Javon Hargrave last year, who's one of the best penetrating 3 techs in the league. You had Jordan Davis, who, even though he's more of a run defender, can still get in the backfield from time to time just because he's bigger and stronger than the guy in front of him, or, whoever else, right?
Mm-hmm.
And I'm sure that'll stay the same because Desai is so deeply ingrained in Fangio. And the defensive line, I'm not going to say got better because it didn't. Losing Javon Hargrave makes it worse, objectively speaking. But I do like the moves they made, obviously bringing in Jordan Davis and Moro Ajomo, I'm a fan of. So, they'll still be able to do stuff like that. And you'll have some of the older guys more healthy. Nolan Smith coming in, obviously.
Fletcher Cox still being there.
Mm-hmm.
Trying to see who else they added. Because, they lost a lot. Robert Quinn's gone. Sue, Linval, Hargrave, obviously.
Yeah, but those three, I mean, Linval and Sue played important roles, but they weren't on the field a ton. And
And they can
Robert
also just
Quinn,
bring them back late in the year
right.
anyways.
And
So,
Robert Quinn didn't really do anything for them.
which is wild. I
They
thought that
gave
was
up a
going to be
fourth
like
round pick
awesome.
for him, and he did nothing.
Yeah, congrats. You got pick number like 282 and the Bears cut him, so it's no big deal.
Yeah, and it was a fourth round pick.
Yeah. I don't know what
You don't
number that
cut
would actually
fourth
be.
round picks.
Darius Rush. That's all I got.
Okay, well, I still don't understand that.
I don't know
Hold
who
on,
the Bears picked with the Eagles pick.
I'm going to figure that out myself, actually, while we're sitting here.
Yeah, I'm intrigued.
Because I love
But
the Bears draft
their
process.
defense in general just lost a lot, which worries me to a point, but not as much. Losing TJ Edwards and Kaiser White is tough. That's why you brought in Nakobe Dean last year. Sorry, I'm looking at a thing, seeing who all they lost. CJ Gardner Johnson and Marcus Epps both being gone is tough. I know you love Terrell Edmonds though. So
Yeah, I'm weirdly high on Terrell Edmonds.
who
And
is
we'll
their
talk about him
other
when we get to
safety
free
though?
agency.
Who's replacing Epps?
Reed Blankenship.
That's not ideal.
I actually don't mind it.
Marcus Epps better.
I think Marcus Epps is better right now, but I think Blankenship has a higher ceiling. He's more athletic. His instincts are really nice. He's good
Yeah, but he
against the
didn't
run.
go to Wyoming, so I'm out. Epps
There it
better.
is. There it is.
Give me my bias. It's all right. Dude, there's like 5 NFL players who went to school at UW. Let me be excited, okay?
Yeah, so Tyler Scott was who the Bears got with that pick.
Did he make the roster?
Yes, he's
Okay.
wide receiver 4.
Okay. No. Equanimous better be wide receiver 4.
No, Tyler Scott's better.
Nah.
Yeah, this guy doesn't know ball. Get off my show.
Equanimous St. Brown was the only good wide receiver you had last year. Chill out. He's the only guy who could catch a pass.
Actually, no. He had a Kadarius Toney moment last year on a crucial 4th down.
No, that's one play. A Kadarius Toney moment is dropping 8 balls in a game.
Nope, too bad. He sucks. Anyways,
well, if that's the case, then I mean Darnell Mooney is the worst receiver ever. He drops 4 a game. No hands.
He does. This guy's
the reason you
lost
every game.
This guy's talking out of his ass. But yeah, I mean, I don't want to say worried about the linebacker core because Philly really doesn't put a lot of value in it. Like, there's a reason why they were running TJ Edwards and Kaiser White on cheap contracts as their 2 linebackers. Granted, that was a really good duo. I liked that duo a lot. But now you've got Zach Cunningham and Nakobe Dean, and I don't remember. Were you a Nakobe Dean guy?
He was my. What was that linebacker class?
That was Chanel and
Muma
and Muma. Yeah.
So I had Chanel, Muma, Dean, Asamoah. I think
Dean was my LB2 that year. I had him
Lloyd.
Chanel.
I had Muma, but Lloyd, I was just like you, right? You were never really in on Lloyd.
It was the same. It was the same. My biggest issue with Lloyd was the same issue I had with Asamoah, just cranked up to 10.
Fair. And then Quay Walker was Quay.
Yeah.
He wasn't the best linebacker on his own defense, so
yeah, precisely. But yeah, Nakobe Dean, like I like the upside he has. Like, he's instinctive. Yeah. He's got a really quick processor. He's not the most athletic guy in the world, but he's got enough to get shit done. He's good at like manning up on running backs and tight ends. And obviously, you know, the biggest critique of him coming out was, oh, well, he played behind that Georgia offensive or defensive line. No wonder he was so good. He's just playing behind that defensive line again, but with Hassan Reddick. That's literally what is happening here with Hassan Reddick and Brandon Graham and Fletcher Cox and Milton Williams and whoever else, Moro Ajomo,
Derek Barnett, Josh.
Yeah, Derek Barnett. Yeah. Like He's just playing up behind that line, cranked up to 10. So
Yeah.
it's I don't know. I'm excited for him. And then Zach
Yeah.
Cunningham's just a thumper. Like he's a sick
Yeah.
run defender. And he's not bad in coverage either. He's good enough. So I wouldn't say I'm worried, but they definitely took a big hit there.
Yeah.
And then at safety, you mentioned Reed Blankenship. I like him. Like he's really good at flying up to the line of scrimmage and making a play. He's really athletic. He's really smart. It's just kind of, he hasn't had the opportunities. He's not the most
Sure.
proven guy in the world, but I like the upside there. And, like I was saying earlier, safety isn't the most important position on this
No.
defense. Like safety and linebacker, and this goes for most defenses, but especially this defense, are really not the most important positions here. In fact, on this defense, it's almost like they're not important. They matter, but
And
you can afford to
realistically,
be their
Edmonds
weak
is going to
links.
be the only safety on the field most of the time, anyways. Safety,
Yeah.
because they'll just be either an extra pass rusher or just corners.
Well, see, I think it would actually be the opposite, where they would have Blankenship lined up as the only actual safety, and then Edmonds would essentially just be playing linebacker.
I could see that.
Because Edmonds, I mean, he, fuck, I forget what college he went to, but he committed as a linebacker, and then they decided he was too small.
Tech.
Yeah, Virginia Tech. Thank you. He committed as a linebacker. They moved him to safety his sophomore year, and then he came out as a safety, but he still got like the linebacker traits you want. Like in terms of his gap discipline and being able. I saw multiple occurrences last year when I was watching him back on the Steelers where he was setting the edge as a fucking safety, which is awesome. Like, do you know how excited I got seeing a safety set the fucking like? If there are two things I love in this goddamn sport, it's a player setting the edge and a fullback sealing the edge. Those are two of my favorite things in this sport. And seeing a goddamn safety fly up and take on a tackle and set the edge to kick a run inside and have Devin Bush clean up. Oh
Bro
my
thinks
God,
he's Harrison Smith.
He kind of built
Harrison
like him.
Smith light. Yeah, absolutely.
That's another reason why I love Harrison Smith so much is shit like that.
It's because he's just a psychopath.
Exactly. Yeah, Edmonds.
To be a good safety, you got to be a little psychotic. It's like the rule.
For sure. But yeah, he can do that. His instincts against the run are great. He has really good gap discipline. He reads quarterbacks and reads running backs very well. His tackling form has gotten a lot better. And obviously, like in coverage, he's not perfect, but as your second safety coverage wise, I think you can be pretty confident in him there. So
do you just like him
I
because his brother's on your team?
That's why I paid attention to him when I was watching the Steelers, but then I fell in love with the player.
Okay.
Yeah, I love it. And much like his brother, he's gotten better every single year of his career. He's been consistently improving. So I'm really excited for him. I'm excited for Reed Blankenship. And then another player on this defense I'm really excited for that Eagles fans are talking about, but people outside of Philadelphia aren't giving a ton of love to is Milton Williams. And I understand why, because the defensive line is stacked and it's going to be hard for anyone not named Jalen Carter or Jordan Davis to get PT. But, Milton Williams is a defensive tackle that ran a 4.6 and has legitimately like solid size, worked very, very closely with Javon Hargrave, has gotten the Fletcher Cox seal of approval as the future of Philadelphia's defensive line. He's just somebody that really needs to get more consistent. But last year he was showing dominant flashes as a pass rusher. He was consistently dominant against the run. His instincts are pretty good there. So I like the upside of Milton Williams a good bit. Like I said, it's going to be hard for him to get on the field, but I
don't think it is.
Really,
Fletcher Cox is old, and we've all had the question with both Jalen Carter and Jordan Davis
the stamina
about their playing time.
Oh my God, you're right.
That happens sometimes. I don't know what it is with me and making things click in his brain, but there you go. Look at that cheesy
Milton Williams
ass
season,
smile.
baby. Oh, I'm mad. I should have put Milton Williams on the agenda. I would have had him, Nakobe Dean, and Terrell Edmonds all on the agenda if I would have.
Oh my God.
I'm a fan. I love Milton. Dude, he's a D tackle that ran a 4.6. You can't tell me that's not fucking sick.
I mean, It's terrifying.
I'll put it this way: he's as fast as Nakobe Dean.
Yeah, I don't like that. Dude, I'm just looking at this from the perspective of I have to watch Garrett Bradbury try to block these motherfuckers next Thursday. Like, we're less than a week away from that, and Kirk's gonna die. I think we should start Jaren Hall week 2. He can move. He can get away from the big guys.
Why would you want my glorious king to get killed?
No, because he can get away from him. Kirk can't.
Dude, he can get away, and then he's just gonna get smacked in the face by Hassan Reddick.
No, because Hassan Reddick can't get by Christian Darrisaw. It's fine. I don't know what that face is about. I'm right.
Dude, I love Darrisaw. He's a top 10 tackle, but let's...
Hassan Reddick had 1.5 good years in his life. Let's chill out.
He's one of the 5 best edge rushers in football. He was considered
bad for the first 8 years of his career. Chill out.
Because they were trying to use him as an off-ball linebacker, and he's not one. He's a pass rusher.
Well, the Eagles' defense is apparently going to be running a 4-3, so he's going to be not a pass rusher.
He is still a pass rusher. Again. He is still a pass rusher.
Except for when he's not. So
which is very rare. He does have some plays where he leaks out.
Defense, so it could change.
Dude, it's fuck him again. Dude, it's not a 4-3 defense. It's a Fangio defense. That's inherently a 3-4 defense where the outside linebackers
not according to the thing I'm reading. That's all I'm saying.
Okay, well, the thing you're reading is wrong, and it should feel
probably
bad.
It is ESPN's depth chart thing.
Yeah, blow it up.
But yeah, no. The Minnesota has good tackles. We have no interior.
Yeah.
I'm not as worried about guys coming off the edge. I'm worried about the big motherfuckers in the middle. Because Ed Ingram and Garrett Bradbury are bad.
Yeah, that's fair.
Jalen Carter is going to commit murder. There's going to be a lot of murder. I'm scared. Thank you for this. I'm glad I was on this episode to feel worse about my life.
Understandably so. But moving off of the defense and jumping over to the offensive side of the ball, I think the biggest story here is not what most people would turn to. And that is the offensive line. Not that I think it's going to be bad or anything. I'm not here to pull out like a bullshit hot take. It's just they lost Isaac Seumalo, who is a really damn good guard. Mm-hmm. And now Cam Jurgens is stepping up, who I am a fan of. I think will be fine. Mm-hmm. But it's worth noting, right? Mm-hmm. So how do you think the Eagles are going to fare with this transition?
I genuinely don't think they lose a step. I really don't.
Why is that?
Seumalo was basically their least effective guard. He was still great, but most of the time, him and Kelsey were blocking a guy, and Dickerson was on his own.
I don't know if anything's a freak of nature.
I don't know if anything actually changes because left guard for Philly's O-line doesn't matter. No. It's not that it doesn't matter, but they get the help of Jason Kelsey every play. So, who, by the way, is awful.
Yeah. By the way, he's 34? And looked better than he's ever looked last year.
Oh, no, he's 35.
He was 34 last year and looked the best and quickest and most athletic he's ever looked.
Yeah.
Which, what the fuck? Why?
Because the Kelseys are built different, bro.
They really are. And then you look at the rest of that line.
Living, I guess. I don't know. Mm-hmm. Ohio.
Only in Ohio. That's why.
Well, I mean, think about it. Think of the athletes that come out of Ohio. The Kelseys, LeBron, Steph Curry. They're all kind of freaks who just play forever. And none of it ever makes any sense. So...
Yeah. But you've got that freak at center. You've got Landon Dickerson, who just says fuck you to every defensive player he has ever met. You have Jordan Mailata, who I love dearly because he's a large Australian man with a voice of gold.
Yes.
I genuinely adore Jordan Mailata. I know everyone gets hyped up on how funny Kelsey is and how great Kelsey is. And don't get me wrong, he is the best.
Yeah.
But Jordan Mailata is my favorite lineman they have.
Fair.
Like off the field, especially because this is an Eagles episode. I'm sure any Eagles fan that is watching this has already heard it. But if you have not listened to the Eagles Christmas album, it is beautiful. And Jordan Mailata's voice on that album never fails, to give me chills. It's awesome. And like when Jordan Mailata was on The Masked Singer, oh my God, dude. He's incredible. I love him. And then also they have some dude named Lane Johnson on the right side of the line. No big deal, he's all right. Not like the best right tackle in football for the past
not like
however
Hall
long
of
year,
Famer,
how many years.
Oklahoma legend.
Yeah,
none of that.
Yeah, it's not like they have 2 first ballot Hall of Famers on this offensive line. One guy that can make a case for himself if he keeps playing at the level he's playing at, and then a guard who genuinely hates people on the other side of the ball, and Cam Jurgens, who I saw line up at fullback one time and pop the fuck out of somebody.
There you go.
Crazy offensive line.
Yeah,
crazy.
I hate the Eagles because they always have a good front four on defense to good offensive line.
It's almost like they know how to build a team because you start through the trenches.
Almost. Bastards.
Crazy concept.
Hate them. I wonder what that's like. Why can't you just have only be good at skill positions? Why that not thing? That's what we do over in Minnesota.
Speaking of skill positions, things are also getting kind of controversial there, namely in the backfield with, Miles Sanders being on the way out. And as you pointed out earlier on, a depth chart where all of their running backs are listed as starters, apparently. So just kind of as a whole, what are your thoughts on this backfield, not including Jalen Hurts right now?
Gainwell and Boston Scott are both inconsistent. They'll have like 2 big games a year. So whatever. And is it Boston Scott who always does it against the Giants?
Yes.
Yeah.
He is the Giant Slayer.
Yeah. DeAndre Swift is like, I don't know, cool little gadgety dude. He's got a lot of explosiveness, but
sure,
he's not very good.
Yeah, I mean, you know me, I'm not a Swift guy.
And then everybody knows me, knows that Rashad Penny is my GOAT. So he should be their actual starter, getting 8 yards of carry behind this O-line, but we shall see there. But I think as a whole, they did a pretty good job replacing. I mean, they easily replaced what Miles Sanders could do because he could, much like Austin Eckler, you couldn't give him the ball 20 times a game.
Yeah.
Rashad Penny, you can until something breaks.
Healthy, right.
So, and it's not like because he's just too small. Dude just gets the freakiest of injuries. It's wild. But
I like the room, as a committee. Now, kind of going least favorite to favorite. DeAndre Swift doesn't do a whole lot for me.
No.
I'm somebody that above all else in a running back, I value vision, right?
Yeah.
You need to be able to see the field. You need to be able to locate holes. You need to be able to hit those holes, things of that nature. Swift just doesn't. Swift is, I'm taking this to the outside, or so help me God, I will make everyone's day worse. And he tends to make everyone's day worse by missing open lanes and, getting popped in the backfield and just being a mess. And so I'm not moved by him. Now, granted, he is an explosive player, so he will have moments where he breaks off a run to the outside for 30 or 40 yards, or you throw a screen pass to him and, he makes a play in the passing game. But as a pure runner of the football, I cannot stand DeAndre Swift. And then Rashad Penny, probably the most talented player in this backfield. Yeah. I don't think that's crazy to say. However, until he shows me that he can stay healthy, I do not have a ton of confidence. Now, this is the best position for him to be healthy. But kind of like you mentioned, it's not like he's getting healthy because he's taking a bunch of wear and tear and just breaking down. Right. It's some freak stuff. And, if that is the case, then, it's not like no offensive line in the world is going to prevent a freak injury. Right. And I'm not trying to say he's injury prone because I hate that. And I'm not going to predict injuries because that's a terrible thing to do. But there is that concern.
Yeah.
Kenneth Gainwell, though, I'm kind of growing more and more fond of. Like today when I was doing I always do a last minute film session before I do one of these where I just kind of skim through a couple games. I'll have clips that I've saved throughout my older research and go back and revisit. And the more I watched Kenneth Gainwell, I was like, oh, okay. So, like you mentioned, doesn't quite have the consistency of an every down back yet, but he also hasn't quite had the chance to be an every down back yet because they wanted Miles Sanders to be that. Now, this is a guy who his vision is incredible. Despite being a smaller back, he has really nice play strength. He's a fantastic pass catcher out of the backfield. He reminds me a lot of Aaron Jones, someone that you and I are both very familiar with, being fans of the NFC North and having to deal with him twice a year.
Mm-hmm.
And I'm not saying he's going to be Aaron Jones because I think that's an unreasonable expectation. But if you can get diet Aaron Jones out of Kenneth Gainwell and he can get a little more consistent, I think he can be an every down back in Philadelphia. So I don't think the Miles Sanders loss is a huge loss because I've never been a big Miles Sanders guy because he has the same exact problem DeAndre Swift did. And maybe that should inspire a little more confidence in me with Swift because the Eagles were able to make up for Miles Sanders' lack of vision. Mm-hmm. But he also came in with an issue with vision, and they were kind of coaching that out of him from the start. Whereas DeAndre Swift has pre-established habits. And sometimes it's not easy to teach an old dog new tricks. Not to say that DeAndre Swift's old, but by running back standards, he's like middle-aged. So it's kind of hard to coach that out of him at this point in his career, like quickly, So I'm gonna have to see that to believe it. Is kind of what I'm trying to say.
Okay. Yeah.
You good?
Yeah. Calling DeAndre Swift at 24 middle-aged when Kenneth Gainwell is also 24 is that I don't know why that just got me. I don't know.
But running back standards, 24 is basically 30.
Well, no, like 27 is basically 30.
24 is like 28.
Then I guess Jonathan Taylor's old and washed.
That's why the Colts don't want to pay him.
Don't pay a running back more than $1.
You go buy yourself a running back off the dollar menu at McDonald's.
Dude, that's what they did. Rashad Penny's making less than $1 million.
Yeah.
Like, they did. They got a great running back.
If DeAndre Swift not DeAndre Swift, if Rashad Penny can stay healthy, that could be the greatest investment ever.
That would be insane. If he gets a full year, it goes for like 1,500 yards for less than $1 million. Howie should just get a lifetime achievement award.
I think the other 31 GMs just resign.
Yeah.
It's not fair.
This is some bullshit. I'm done. No, see, they don't resign. It's full mutiny. They kick Howie Roseman out of the NFL. Jerry Jones creates a petition, fire Howie Roseman.
It's Jerry Jones and Jim Irsay.
The issue is Howie just says, okay, leaves the Eagles, signs with who's the worst run organization in ball, not because of their owner. Probably the Cardinals.
In all of sports or just football?
Football. But not because their owner just they make bad hiring choices. Is it the Cardinals?
I think it is Arizona.
Well, Howie's going to go turn around the Cardinals, I guess. That's what happens.
Jonathan Gannon's going to put in a good word.
I mean, I could see
that'll be what gets him the job. The Jonathan Gannon seal of approval.
Nice.
I'm
sure that means a lot.
Yeah, but no, run game go Burr, essentially.
True.
And kind of looking at how the Eagles ran the ball last year, because I assume this will stay the same, if not the exact same. It'll be the same. It won't change. This is a team that was 29th in outside zone with 11% of their runs. They were first in inside zone with 39% of their runs. They ran it over and over and over again. This was their bread and butter. They ran it out of no huddle. If they went no huddle, which the Eagles did a decent bit last year, this was their go-to. If it was like third and too long to run a QB sneak, this was their go-to. If they were going to run a zone read with Jalen Hurts, this was their go-to. That's just how this offense functioned, and that will stay the same. And that's another reason why I don't love DeAndre Swift for this offense, because if you're running inside zone, DeAndre can't go outside, and he wants to go outside, not inside. He doesn't
True.
like it in there. He also doesn't like Bo Burnham. Have you not seen Inside?
Oh, is okay. I see what you were doing.
Yeah, it was a
That
shitty
was
joke, but the fact that you just didn't get it.
I didn't know it was a joke. I thought he actually like hated Bo Burnham. I was like, what
Yes,
the fuck?
DeAndre Swift, known Bo Burnham hater.
I mean, it's possible. Anything's possible. I didn't know what was going on.
All right. But they were, like I said, that was a really shitty joke anyways. It just, that just drew it out. But they were tied for 30th in duo with 5%. They were tied for 25th in power with 5% of their runs. They were tied for 4th in counter with 11%, which is really funny because their counter runs were just, hey, Jalen, go that way, and then everyone will go with you, and we'll have a running back lead block. And he was like, okay. Like, the fact that they ran QB counter as their main counter play is really fucking funny to me. Because it was, like I said, Jalen Hurts running, and then you have one of the guards pulling, you have Jason Kelsey pulling, and then you have whoever the running back is being the lead blocker for Hurts, and I think that's really cool. They were tied for 6th in draw with 5% of their run plays. Again, a lot of Jalen Hurts QB draw, and they were 13th in pin and pull plays with 8% of their run plays. So, run game goes hard.
Go Burr. Yep.
It was really, really good. That's the reason they were the most efficient run game in football last year. And the passing game's even cooler because this is just Jalen Hurts saying, hey, AJ Brown, go do a thing, and I'm going to get you the ball. And he's like, okay. And I'm just going to bean top everybody in the league forever. And that was most of the passing game. That or Devontae Smith comes over the middle and does some crazy shit.
Yeah.
And then like Dallas Goedert's also there, I guess, as a top 5 tight end, casually being the 3rd receiving option.
Yeah.
And Quez Watkins is also fun.
Olamide Zacchaeus. He was wide receiver
He's
1
there.
in Atlanta for a while. So
Yeah, he's
there
there
you
now.
go. Wide receiver 5 now.
Yeah. And I just want to say I love Devontae Smith and AJ Brown together because first of all, they might be the most perfectly complementary receiver duo in football.
Mhm.
Like Higgins and Chase are probably the best duo overall because in terms of just pure talent, but in terms of complementing one another, Smith and Brown are number 1 by a mile.
It's like old Diggs and Thielen.
Yes.
Because when
Actually,
Thielen was
yes.
still in his prime. Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah. It's just
And
them.
and it's really funny too, because this team does the whole Batman thing, right?
Yeah.
They love that. And usually when you hear Batman and Robin in football, it pertains to, at least in my mind, it goes to edge rushers because of the analogy I use and I see a lot of other people use. But this Batman and Robin duo might be the best example of Batman and Robin comic wise, like comic accuracy, because not only is your Batman awesome, but your Robin could like stand on his own and be a number 1 receiver somewhere else on top of being a really good complement to the number 1. I've made this reference 100 times in this series, and I'm sure people are sick of hearing it by now, but I have a Batman poster behind me. I fucking love Batman. My favorite comic book character is the original Robin, Dick Grayson. And god damn it, if this duo doesn't make me want to talk about Batman, then I don't know what would. Because, oh my god, I love the two of them together. They're awesome. And I'm sure Jalen Hurts also loves them together because they are awesome.
Yeah, probably. I mean, I don't know what else I'm supposed to say here.
Yeah, they're just, it's so incredible. Like Devontae Smith blows my mind as a player because, coming out of Bama and even just looking at him, he's skinny. He's not the fastest guy in the world. He's not the tallest guy in the world. He's skinny. Yet there were very few occurrences last year of him genuinely getting beat by press where, it would take like a big physical corner to do that. That's also like really technically refined. And there's not many of those in the league. That the number of those is very small. It's a very situational situation. And I would imagine if you have one of those corners, in most cases, you're going to want to put them on AJ Brown anyways.
Yeah.
So I love, like, him working in the league is so cool. I think
Yeah.
that's so awesome. They're just like, hey, here's this little skinny kid. Watch him do cool shit.
Yeah, right.
And then AJ Brown was like, hey, I was stuck with Ryan Tannehill. Look what happens when I have a quarterback that can get the ball downfield. I just casually have an 80% contested catch rate. Still can't get over that number, by the way. That's absurd.
Yeah.
Like the fact that 50-50 balls to AJ Brown or 80-20 balls is crazy. I can't wrap my mind around that.
Let's see if I can find a chart of other.
Like I said, I think the next highest guy was in the 60s. I can't remember who it was. I know Mike Williams was like around 55.
Because I know what's his bucket. D-Hop is not going to be on the list because he just didn't play enough.
Yeah.
But he should be.
You just call him what's his bucket?
Well, I couldn't remember his name. It's fine. Dude, how old is this list from PFF? Also, you're dumb.
I'm just saying I've never heard the term what's his bucket.
I've heard
what's his name and what's his nuts, but I've never heard what's his bucket.
Well, there you go. You've heard it now.
I still like what's his nuts
has
better.
D-Hop on the Texans. AJ Green was on the list. Kenny Galladay.
Wow.
This is an old list.
All right. Well, while you're looking at that list,
I'm not
looking
finding
at
a real list.
Okay. Well, looking at the passing numbers for the Eagles last year, this was a team that was 7th in play action percentage with 31.2% of their snaps. And there should be like a slight asterisk next to that because a lot of their RPO stuff gets charted as play action. So a lot of that play action is just them running their RPOs. They were 10th in average time to throw with 2.9 seconds. They were 9th in average depth of target with 9.5 yards. They were tied for 15th in air yard percentage with 53.1% of their yards, meaning that whatever that would be, 46.9% of their yards came after the catch. They were tied for 7th in big time throw percentage with 4.3%, obviously a large testament to how good their deep game was. And they were tied for 2nd in yards per attempt with 8.4. And I think my favorite thing about this passing game is they really don't have to get fancy or creative. Their guys are just better than all the corners in the league. And I know that's just kind of been what we've been saying over and over again, but it's true. They're awesome. They're really good at their jobs, and I love it. But yeah, unless you have anything else to add with last season, I think we can jump over to the offseason and kind of talk about what happened there.
Yeah, I don't think I got much.
All right, so looking at free agency, obviously the Eagles spent a lot of their money to keep guys in-house, right?
Mm-hmm.
And that is going to result in guys leaving. So out of the players that left Philadelphia, who do you think is going to have the biggest impact not being there next year?
That's so tough. Because in a lot of the spots, they have good replacements.
Mm-hmm.
Or like a good committee of replacements. And I don't know, for some guys, like we talked about with like Marcus Epps, I'm sorry, that's not that big of a loss. And Blankenship might be just as good, like actually.
Yeah.
Now, if Blankenship isn't as good, then Epps is probably your big loss. But like, yeah, Hargrave's gone, but you're replacing him with Jordan Davis and Jalen Carter. You'll probably be fine. Isaac's Siamalu, whatever.
I always say Siamalu.
Okay. Yeah, he's gone. Cam Jurgens is replacing him.
Mm-hmm.
Like Chauncey Gardner-Johnson's gone. I guess maybe CJ is the big loss. But like,
I can get behind that.
I guess. But I also really don't know if he is either. Like,
right.
Because as you said, safeties aren't important here. The same thing. Maybe it's TJ Edwards, but probably not because linebackers don't really matter. So,
right.
They lost a lot of pieces. I'm gonna say Javon Hargrave just for giggles, but I think he's replaced pretty easily. It's more the ability to stay on the field that is big.
I don't know if I'd say pretty easily. Like Javon Hargrave being gone is a pretty sizable loss.
Right.
Down the road,
you have
maybe.
2 top 10 defensive tackle picks in behind him.
Yeah,
So,
but I don't think either one of them in themselves makes up for Hargrave.
And we'll have to see.
I don't even
think Davis could this year.
I don't think he will after year one. Like, listen, okay, I'm a Jordan Davis fan. You know, he was in my eyes, one of the 3 best players in this class. I don't think he's going to replace Javon Hargrave seamlessly.
No, Jordan Davis was last year.
Or sorry, yeah.
This is his second year. You're thinking Carter.
Excuse me. Yeah, sorry. They're the same fucking guy. Jalen Carter's just a lot better at rushing the passer. Okay. Yeah. Jalen Carter, you know I'm a big fan of him. I had him as a top 3 talent in this year's class, right?
Yeah.
I don't see him seamlessly replacing Javon Hargrave in year one. Down the road, most likely, if he gets his things figured out, gets his ducks in a row. But in year one, no, because Javon Hargrave was arguably the best pass rushing 3 tech last year. I don't think he was, but he was at least in the top 3 to 5. Like, he was incredible. Like, you don't just replace that in an offseason. That just doesn't happen unless they would have traded for Chris Jones or Quentin Williams. You don't just replace that in an offseason.
Right.
And that's not a shot at Davis or at Carter. It's just he's a rookie. That's a lot to ask of a rookie in year one.
Right. Absolutely.
Now, I think they'll be okay at defensive tackle. I don't think it's going to be a problem, obviously, but they downgraded. Like, objectively speaking, they downgraded at least for now. Now, Hargrave's 30, 31. Jordan Davis is, or not, Jesus Christ, I keep doing it. Jalen Carter is still in his early 20s. So long term, they'll get it figured out if Carter gets his shit figured out. But I the only reason why I'm getting like kind of aggressive with this is because I've seen a lot of Eagles fans say like, we're fine, it doesn't matter. Javon Hargrave wasn't that good anyways. Like,
I don't think it's he wasn't that good. It's just
no, I have seen them legitimately say
I just mean
that good.
I think
I know on your end,
just more of a they'll be fine.
Yeah, no, they'll be fine, but they're still gonna feel his presence not being there. Like, Hargrave would have been my answer for this question, because the rest of these guys, like you mentioned, love TJ Edwards. He's going to be awesome in Chicago. He's an awesome linebacker. Linebacker isn't a huge thing for Philadelphia's defense. CJ Gardner-Johnson, he might be felt a little bit more, but he's a safety. This defense doesn't value safeties very high. Miles Sanders, I'm still not super high on him as a player. I think you've got a nice committee that replaces him. Isaac Seumalo, really good guard, but I like Cam Jurgens as a replacement. Kaiser White, he was a replaceable linebacker. I think Zach Cunningham is just as good as him, but for different reasons. Marcus Epps, solid safety, but again, safety doesn't matter a whole lot for this defense. And then other names here: Brett Kern, Linval Joseph, and Ndamukong Suh, Robert Quinn, Zach Pascal, Gardner Minshew, and Andre Dillard. No one there is a huge loss. A couple guys there got some solid snaps last year, but they were old rotational pieces that, like you said, if shit goes south, they can always bring them back if they really want to, because they haven't gotten signed anywhere yet and probably won't. So it's not a huge deal. But then you look at the free agents they retained, and it makes sense as to why they let so many names that to the naked eye seem like big losses leave. Because you've got Jalen Hurts was the highest paid player in NFL history there for a couple minutes until he was replaced by Lamar Jackson, who was replaced by Justin Herbert, who was just replaced by Joe Burrow, and will continue to be replaced on and on and on as long as quarterbacks get paid, which is hilarious.
And I'm almost waiting for Justin Jefferson to replace them all at this point. Dude, I'm so terrified of that contract. I wish they had it done already. Because if he wins a second offensive player of the year, he's getting $75 million a year, and there's nothing anyone can do about it.
Yeah.
I'm scared.
But they also, but they also had to bring back Jason Kelce, Lane Johnson, Darius Slay, James Bradbury, and Brandon Graham. That's one hell of a group. Now, I'm sure you remember the weird cornerback debacle that the Eagles dealt with at the very beginning of the offseason, where it was they cut Bradbury and then had to bring him back, and then Slay was on the trade market allegedly, right? Isn't that how it went down?
I don't remember. It was goofy.
It was
The
either
whole
that or it
offseason
was
was weird.
because I'm pretty sure it was both corners involved. That's what I'm trying to remember. If it was both of them or if it was just Bradbury. I want to say it was both.
It was both, I think.
Yeah, and then people were going crazy over, oh my God, Christian Gonzalez is an Eagle
Yeah.
because they needed corners. Yeah. So it was wonky, but they got it figured out, thankfully, because like we said, or like I brought up earlier, it was very important to have those corners in this defense last year, and I'm sure it'll be just as important this year. Even though Desai's probably going to run less quarters and more quarter half, you still need those guys because they're damn good at their job.
Yeah.
And then they also retained Boston Scott. And did Tyree Jackson make the 53?
No.
I didn't think so. That's what I
I
thought.
don't, as far as I can see, no, anyways.
Okay. And then third-party additions, we've got DeAndre Swift, Rashad Penny, Terrell Edmonds, three guys we already talked about. Contavious Street, kind of like a pass-rushing specialist on the defensive line. Olamide Zacchaeus, I always forget how to say his name. He was, like you said, wide receiver 1 in Atlanta at one point last year, and now he's wide receiver 3, wide receiver 4 here. Can be productive, can be a sneaky good guy. Nick Morrow coming over from my Chicago Bears, who is a quietly solid linebacker. If he made the 53, he did, right?
Nicholas Moreau did not.
Oh, my heart.
Did not.
That's crazy.
They have a shockingly small amount of linebackers.
They have 4, right?
5.
Who's the 5th one? Who are they?
So Cunningham, Dean, Reddick is listed as
okay.
Reddick and Nolan Smith are both listed as linebackers.
Well, yeah, but they're pass rushers. They're not off-ball linebackers.
But they're both playing at yeah. And then Sean Bradley and Christian Ellis.
Okay.
Yeah.
And then other names here. Zach Cunningham, we already talked about.
Mm-hmm.
Marcus Mariota brought in as the backup quarterback. Cool backup for Hurts. Justin Evans, safety depth. And then Isaiah Rodgers got picked up by the Eagles after his year-long suspension, which might be a genius move by Howie because Isaiah Rodgers is someone that a lot of people, were looking at as a potential breakout candidate before everything went down, and I still think has a ton of upside at corner. So that'll be an interesting situation to monitor next year. But he is on the roster, and I forget, if you're suspended, do you still get to practice?
I don't know. It might depend on the suspension, I think.
Okay.
I actually am not 100%.
That would make
sure.
a lot of sense if that was the case. But either way, they'll get to see something of him this year to decide whether or not they want to re-up him for another year, or at the very least, it'll give him incentive to want to stick around for another year because they were the one team to actually like reach out and offer him a contract, I'm sure, or at least the team he decided to go with. Moving off free agency, jumping over to the draft. I already know the answer to this, but I'm going to ask it for the sake of consistency. Who was your favorite draft pick the Eagles made?
Do you know?
I think I do. I'm 99.9% positive
Smith.
I do.
Yeah. I mean, come on, dude. You got one of the 3 best edge rushers in the class.
One of the 10 best players in the class.
Oh, without a doubt. But like top 3 edge rusher. Some of us may have had him rated higher than others. But like a top 3 edge rusher in the class at the 30th pick, like, dude, that's insane. I hate it. I'm so mad.
Dude, the fact that he fell to 30 blows.
I'm mad at the league for letting it happen.
It's insane. Like, Nolan Smith is another player that I fell in love with instantly watching his tape because he's so fun to watch. Like, there's just something funny about a little dude like Nolan Smith who has a ton of gas, who, ran what, a 4.39 40.
Yeah.
Sick run defender, sets a really strong edge. One of my favorite things is a bunch of people were talking about it, is his bull rush. Because you have this dude that's this tiny ass edge rusher, but force is what? Mass times acceleration. So when you have his weight going at that type of speed, and generates enough force to give you a knockback. So it's like, your average tackle, you see this little guy line up from here, like, oh, this is a piece of cake. And then he just fucking plows through you. And it's like, holy shit.
Yeah.
It's awesome. And as a run defender, he has an eye for the ball. His nose is always he is always in the backfield. He has a nose for the ball is what I was trying to say there. His hand usage is awesome. I affectionately dubbed him the little edge that could.
Yes.
Because I love Nolan Smith. And, myself and a lot of other people compared him to Hassan Reddick, gave him that Hassan Reddick draft comp. And now he gets to play with Hassan Reddick and probably opposite Hassan Reddick, or at least backing up Hassan Reddick. We'll see how they do that. I'm sure there will be times where he's doing both.
Yep.
I mean, come on, dude.
Dude,
it's not
ridiculous. Fair. I hate the Eagles.
It's really not fair. And then, they also got like some freak of nature at the 9th pick or whatever.
Yeah, Jalen Carter, I think was his name. I don't really know much about him.
Clearly, I don't know his name.
Yeah. Yeah.
Calling him Jordan Davis for the past 20 minutes.
Yeah, that was rough. That was tough.
But speaking of Jalen Carter, I do want to ask, how do you feel about his off the field issues now, especially now that he's in an environment like the Philadelphia Eagles building?
Well, I mean, he always needed a building like this, but dude, his off the field issue, so there was more to it. Obviously, Georgia coaches basically calling him lazy, which was like the weirdest thing I've ever seen.
Yeah.
Don't think that stays because the Eagles aren't going to let you.
No, absolutely not. If there's one thing Nick Sirianni has, it's fucking energy.
Yeah.
And he is infectious with that energy.
Yeah. And I just think being around all of his college teammates, they're just not going to let him get away with being a dumbass. So
yeah,
everybody wants to bring up the thing, like the bigger thing that happened, the whole speeding ticket.
Yeah.
I'm sorry. He didn't do anything that every other human doesn't do. He wasn't the one drunk driving.
Right. He's a kid that
he didn't do anything really stupid. Speeding is whatever. Every single one of you has done it, I promise.
I haven't.
You can't drive.
Fuck. You got me there.
But I get stupid decisions, but he wasn't drunk driving. He didn't beat the shit out of somebody. He didn't kill anybody. I know I saw a lot of people saying, well, he killed a guy. No, the fuck he didn't. No. He didn't even wreck. The other person in a different car did. Yeah. And he left. And he didn't even just leave, apparently. He waited and was told he could go. And then apparently they need him again and he wasn't there. That's not his fault. You get told you're free to go. I'm going too. I'm out. Deuces.
Yeah. And then people point to his pro day where he was kind of a mess. And it's with all of the narrative spinning around him and the fact that his teammate just died and he's now, being accused by people online of being responsible for his death, I'm sure your mind would be elsewhere too. I'm sure you wouldn't exactly be at maximum capacity, not only mentally, but also physically, because obviously leading up to pro days and the combine, these guys work their asses off. They're spending every waking moment doing some sort of training, doing some sort of workout. And when your mind isn't in it, your mind isn't in it.
Right.
So we've talked about it numerous times on our podcast and just in casual conversation. I'm not worried about Jalen Carter in terms of that. However, I don't want to completely brush off the work ethic thing from Georgia.
Right.
Just because it's Georgia. It's a really good institution. It's a really good football program. And correct me if I'm wrong, it's not like these coaches have a history of making shit up. So they might have overblown it a little bit. Sure, that's definitely possible. But he ended up in the single best environment to get that out of him.
Yep.
I can't think of another team that would be as good because the first one that came to mind was New England, but that's the type of school where a player like that, or the type of team where a player like that would just lose all hope for life because Belichick would beat it out of them. Whereas Philadelphia, it's a lot more like a positive reinforcement and not just you're a fucking idiot, do your shit or get off my field like Belichick is. Which for some guys that works. There's a reason Belichick's been, one of the greatest coaches, or is the greatest coach of all time. And a lot of guys, he is the greatest coach of all time. And, praise. Okay, get out of here.
No, give me Big Red, formerly known as Big Green.
You're just saying that because we're talking about the Eagles. You're trying to be a kiss ass.
No, I'm just saying that because I love Andy Reid. And, he's never been accused of cheating 10 different times. So give me the guy who doesn't cheat. Give me the guy
this guy over here caring about rules and morals. You don't have any sleeves on. I don't want to hear it.
What?
I don't want to lecture on rules.
Bro's
from a man
wearing
that has
broken
no
glasses, and
you have no proof.
Talk. We can literally see that the arm is missing.
I forgot it was on that side. I thought it was on this side.
Incredible.
But yeah, no, the point is, Jalen Carter ended up in the best environment to potentially fix whatever issues he may or may not have. Looking at the rest of this class, Tyler Steen was a pretty sick pick. I think he can be a really nice depth piece at guard for them. We're just going to skip over that guy. Keely Ringo, I really like. We'll come back to him. Don't worry. I just have more to say about him.
Okay.
Keely Ringo, I like.
Yep.
I think he's going to fit really good in this type of system specifically because he's not going to have to man up on guys and press on guys.
He's going to fit really good in the Georgia defense. That's all this is.
Yeah.
That's all this is anymore.
Fair.
Just Georgia.
That is what this is.
Philadelphia Dogs.
Pretty much, yeah. Let's see here. We've got Tanner McKee. Yeah. He's a quarterback.
Yeah. He didn't look too terrible in the preseason.
I honestly didn't watch.
Okay.
I didn't have the only issue I had with Tanner McKee was that he was boring. Like he's True. Fine. He's a fine pocket passer. He'll execute well enough. I don't think he was like a bad pick or anything. He's just really boring. And then Moro Ojomo, who I've talked up, really, really good run defender, with good first step, good leverage, good length, lower body is awesome. He's just really raw as a pass rusher, but hey, you've got a ton of sick pass rushers on the interior defensive line. Why not get Jordan Davis a little backup buddy to help defend the run? And they also picked up Eli Ricks as a UDFA, which is pretty sick.
Yeah.
But the player,
I don't think he made the roster though.
Really?
Yeah. Nope.
Interesting. Okay. Well, but the guy I skipped over was Sidney Brown, out of Illinois. And if you know me, you know I'm not a big fan of Sidney Brown. And the reason for that is his tackling. Now, I understand he's a defensive back. People don't put as much weight into defensive backs tackling, blah, blah, blah. He's a safety. He's not a corner. If he was a corner, if he was, Darius Slay's backup, different story. As a safety, you need to be able to tackle. And this is a guy who missed 70 tackles at Illinois, 40 in his final 2 years. That gives him a roughly 17% missed tackle rate. That's not good for a safety. Like, I've seen a lot of people compare this guy to CJ Gardner-Johnson, say he can be a replacement for him. I think that's incredibly disrespectful to CJ Gardner-Johnson. I don't think Sidney Brown is going to be nearly as good as him. Now, he has the athletic tools and like the reaction time and instincts to be good in coverage. But as a run defender, he's a liability to me. And as a tackler in open space, he's a liability. Like, every time I brought this up, I always get sent one of the same like 5 highlights of him hitting a guy who's not looking his way with his shoulder and popping him. And like, I get it. That's a fun highlight, right? You see a safety lay somebody out, it goes crazy. That's not tackling. That's just hitting a guy. And you're going to get a couple of those opportunities every here and there. But that's not something you can do consistently. You can't just run up and hit stick somebody, for lack of better words, every single time you're going to tackle. You need to know how to wrap up. You need to know proper form. You need to know proper technique. And Sidney Brown did not have any of that coming out. And I know that's something that can be taught. I'm fully aware of that. But I'm not super confident in his abilities to wrap up or his ability to improve as a run defender because he's small. And I saw one person point this out, and I don't know how much I believe it, but I also don't know how much I don't believe it. He has really short arms. And I saw someone speculate that maybe he can't wrap up, or he doesn't wrap up because he physically cannot get his arms around most running backs. which would be wild. But like I said, I haven't seen any evidence to suggest that that's not true. In fact, I've seen more evidence to suggest that it is true. So I don't know. And even if he does learn how to wrap up, his tackle radius is going to be limited because of how small his arms are. And he's also just a little too aggressive for my taste. Like, being aggressive is great, but not as somebody you want as like a serious starting caliber safety. If he's like a third guy that rotates in and out on like third downs, then cool. But I've seen people saying he needs to compete with Terrell Edmonds or with Reed Blankenship as a starting safety. I don't see that. I'm not a fan of that. So I don't know. Philadelphia knows what they're doing defensively. They'll probably end up making me look like a moron. They'll probably have him turning into fucking prime Troy Polamalu out there. But I'm sticking to my guns from what I saw at Illinois. That's just what I'm going off of. That's my evaluation. I don't claim to know better than everybody. It's just what I saw. It's what I believe, and I will stick with it until I'm shown otherwise.
Valid.
Yep. But
Valid.
Moving off of that, unless you have anything else to add about the draft class.
I did. Sidney Brown means nothing to me. The rest of the draft class we kind of talked about, so I don't. They had a good class, and I hate it.
It was really good.
They annoy me.
I mean, Nolan Smith and Jalen Carter in the first round is enough to call it one of the best classes in the league. But then to follow it up with Morrow and Tyler Steen and oh my God, the corner that I already forgot the name of, Keely Ringo, like that's awesome.
Yeah,
they did trade a pick away for DeAndre Swift, which but they would have been better off just drafting a running back. There were like 15 backs in this class I like more than Swift.
Because it's the thing. It's the potential of Swift that you're betting on, and I don't know later in the draft who you would have got that has that same potential.
I mean, I guess.
Again, it's hoping that you can fix a guy, and you're giving up what, a 4th round pick to do it, a 5th round pick to do it. I can't remember.
It was a 4th, I believe.
Okay,
I could be wrong.
That means nothing. Like,
yeah,
you're betting on the upside, and if it doesn't work, like, you missed out on meh. Like, I don't know. If it's not a top 3, like a day 1 or 2 pick, I don't care what happens with it, because like it was a long shot whether you picked the guy or whether you traded for a guy, whether it was going to work or not.
Yeah, I
like
get
the
that.
whole Vikings are stupid. They traded for Jalen Reagor. It's like, no, we took a shot on a guy who obviously has the potential to be good, right?
Mm-hmm.
You don't get drafted in the first round without a shot. It's like the Bears and Claypool.
I think Claypool's a little bit better at his job than Swift is.
But it's also
they gave up more.
They gave up a lot more. So like, you're giving up the potential to pick a guy, to take a guy with a lot of talent who can be good. You're just hoping a change of scenery and a different, maybe a different system can help him be great.
And I mean, maybe I would be lying if I said I didn't see upside in Swift. I'm just not a fan. But moving over to this upcoming season, or when this is uploaded later today, ideally, I think I'm uploading this in the morning.
Nice.
What are your expectations for this team record wise? You know the drill. You can give me a flat record prediction or a ceiling and a floor, and then who are you most excited to watch this year?
Oh no. Most excited to watch. I mean, I think I have 2 answers. It's going to be Rashad Penny and Nolan Smith, I think.
Okay,
those are
fair.
I mean, Jalen Hurts is always on the list. Also, did we mention he got a contract extension? I don't remember. Yeah. Did we? Yeah. Okay.
Yeah, because I went on the whole, he was the highest paid and Lamar was the highest paid and so on and so on.
Yeah, it didn't last very long.
It lasted a whole maybe 2 days.
No, so according to my playoff predictor thing we did, that's right. People are going to be mad. I have the Eagles going 13-4, but finishing as the 5 seed in the NFC.
Yeah, what did you have Dallas at?
14-3.
Okay.
It's a 1 game difference. Because I'm betting on that the history stays the same. Nobody repeats as a winner of the East. And while I think the Eagles are great, the Cowboys have a little bit easier of a schedule and are really good. And it's not like it's that big of a deal because, woo, the Eagles are going to get to go face what? Atlanta?
Right.
Might as well be a bye week. I don't know.
Yeah, I'm going to go the opposite route.
Yeah,
I think this will be the first time we've seen back-to-back division winners
that's
in
fair.
the NFC East.
That's fair.
I just think Philly's that good. You know, I'm a big fan of what Dallas has put together.
Yeah.
You know, I really don't see many holes in that roster, but I don't think there's a single one in this roster. And I trust Jalen Hurts more than I trust Dak right now. I trust their weapons more. I trust their defense more. I trust their coaching a hell of a lot more because I have zero faith in Mike McCarthy. So
Valid.
I think Philly probably in the same range, 13-4, 14-3, right around there. I think this is going to be the best team in the NFC.
Mhm.
And then as for who I'm most excited to watch, there's no fullback on this team, unfortunately, so I can't default. But I'd probably have to go with either Terrell Edmonds or Milton Williams, like one of my
That's valid.
agenda folk. Although I'd be lying if I said I wasn't excited to see Kenneth Gainwell take over as RB1 and solidify his spot as the guy in Philly's backfield,
Valid.
which I'm sticking to, by the way. I came up with that take this morning. I know it's not like a crazy hot take. I just know there's a lot of people in my circle that like Rashad Penny. So if I bring it up, it's going to piss them off. I don't care. I love
Like
Kenny Gainwell. I don't. I usually like to agree. But when I notice something, I'm not going to sit on it and pretend like I am not a hip with the kids, with the knowledge.
Okay.
All right. Well, that's going to do it, I think, for this episode of the team preview series. And like I said, the finale of the team preview series, I believe it'll either be this or Buffalo. I hope I don't upload Buffalo after this one, after hyping
You're
up.
totally uploading Buffalo after this, because why would you upload the Eagles after they've played and Buffalo 2 days before? I wanted to bring that up earlier. When you mentioned, like, oh, I'm going to redo this intro, I thought that was why. And then you just didn't, and I just rode with it. I'm sorry.
You know what? It's all right. This is the last one we're recording.
True.
So, in a way, this
Yeah.
is the end of
There you go.
the team preview series, as I've already recorded the Buffalo episode.
Yeah.
So, God, that's crazy. I'm done with these now.
And this year you got one out for every team. Congrats.
Yeah, I forgot. Ironically, the 49ers last year, I didn't get one out for.
It's funny.
Yeah.
It's because last year he was afraid to do this and just call me to fill in.
It wasn't that I was afraid. I wanted to try to get as many fans on as I could. And then I gave up this year because scheduling is hard. And also people canceled on me left and right, but it's okay. It happens. Life is life and such. But before we head out here, Geek, if you'd like to do your thing, do your plug.
I mean,
sure
hey,
anyone
follow me
watching this
everywhere.
already knows, but
at the
yeah.
TheGeekSlays. Woo, nothing. It's nothing new. It's the same. I was here less than 24 hours ago.
Yeah. This is true.
Yeah, nothing changed. I got a little more sleep now.
More well-rested Geek.
Yeah, that's about it though. I got more content to go make.
Well,
woo.
You can check that out in the description down below. It'll probably just be his link tree, but you know, that's got all his links and his whatnot. And then on my end, obviously Miller Football _ everywhere, Twitter, TikTok, Instagram, all that good stuff. You can find me out there. And then obviously here on YouTube as well, where you are watching this video. And if you enjoyed this video, make sure to leave a like down below, as it helps out a ton, shows your support, shows you care, makes me feel good, gives me that dopamine rush that we're all constantly chasing. And also make sure to subscribe, as now that the team preview series is almost over, because you will see the Buffalo Bills episode tomorrow, now that I've been reminded. We're going to be talking about the NFL season and all sorts of different things. I have a video coming out that I got to record and start writing for here soon, where I'm going to be talking about the tight end position in the NFL, because I actually have a lot of thoughts on that right now, because I think there's some interesting stuff brewing there. And, you know, obviously fullback content. You guys are Eagles fans, so I don't know how much you care about fullbacks.
Ouch.
Keith Byers. Think about Keith Byers. He was a fullback. I think he played fullback in the NFL. He did in college. Surely he did. He had to have.
Cam Jurgens lined up at fullback once.
Cam Jurgens did line up at fullback once. There you go. But yeah, that's going to do it for this episode of my team preview series. So I hope you all enjoyed. And to everyone out there watching, as well as Geek here joining me today, I hope you all have a wonderful day, evening, night, afternoon, whatever time of day it is for you. I hope you enjoy it because you're all wonderful people and you deserve it.